I've got a screenplay of Goldfinger.
Goldfinger made James Bond an international icon.
Imagine digging through Grandma's garage and instead of old Christmas decorations, you stumble on what she swears Charles Lindbergh himself gave her, a wooden propeller. That's exactly what this guy brings in. And suddenly Rick's face lights up like a kid on Christmas morning. But here's the kicker. No paperwork. None. Just vibes and family stories. Can anyone else feel that skepticism rolling in already?
What do we got here?
Well, I was cleaning out my grandma's garage and, I found the thing in the corner.
What was Grandma up to?
That's a very good question.
The old man immediately cracks a joke about the propeller matching Rick's head, because of course he does. But then the story unfolds. Supposedly, Lindbergh gifted it for war bond sales during World War II. That's a bold claim, and with no documentation, Rick knows they're entering murky waters. This thing could be a $10 conversation piece or a $10,000 aviation relic. The tension is thick, folks.
So what do we got here?
What is this?
This is a propeller passed down to me. It was a gift to my grandmother.
Enter Mark, the aviation museum expert, striding in with all the knowledge in the world. He confirms it's pre-World War II and definitely a legit antique propeller. But here's the heartbreak. No way to tie it to Lindbergh without solid proof. He even drops that Lindbergh wasn't exactly Mr. War Bond salesman to begin with. The customer's face? Priceless disappointment. That's the look of, there goes my lottery ticket.
Hey, old man, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Yesterday, a man brought in a propeller that he believes was given to his grandmother by Charles Lindbergh.
Rick throws out a cautious $1,000, and then the old man flexes by going up to $1,500. That rare moment when Dad tries to outbid his own son. But the seller walks, hoping to find documentation. Drama overload. You could feel the shop wanting it, but without paperwork, it's just another maybe.
It's still an antique, it's still in great shape, and it's still worth money, just not nearly as much.
Next, a guy strolls in with what looks like a prehistoric rocket launcher, the flintlock Moscato gun. Rick's eyes widen like he just found treasure in the attic, but he's skeptical. The screws look mismatched, and the lock mechanism seems off. You can see Rick thinking, this could be gold or this could be a Frankenstein special.
Coming to the pawn shop today to try to sell my gun. What I really like about this gun is the thing is huge, and it's like a prehistoric rocket launcher.
Rick calls in Sean, the antique arms expert, and oh boy does he deliver. He explains it's a 1680s to 1690 Moscato that got refurbished around 1740. Hearing him talk, it sounds like this thing has lived several lives, pirates, naval battles, maybe even a tavern brawl or two. The rarity alone has Rick practically drooling. And when Sean says museums don't even have one, you can almost hear the cash register ringing.
Hey Sean, what's up? Here it is. Earlier today, a guy brought me a flintlock musketoon. If it's real, it could be worth a lot of money, but I'm skeptical.
Sean drops the bomb. Conservatively worth $10,000 to $15,000. Cue seller's smug smile. He knew it was valuable. Rick goes in low with $4,000, seller shoots back with $10,000, and suddenly we've got negotiation fireworks. It's a classic Pawn Stars showdown. Two poker faces locked in, tension cuttable with a bayonet.
You have no idea what you have here. You don't find this every day. I mean, it's 100% real. Rick, most museums don't even have a musketoon like this. I mean, these are very, very rare. And
Rick pushes to $6,000. Final offer, take it or leave it. The seller pauses just long enough to make Rick sweat before finally agreeing. You can almost see Rick's internal monologue. Please let this fire. Please let this fire. Don't let me have just bought a museum paperweight.
What if this thing doesn't fire? If this gun fires, it's gonna be worth a whole lot more than if it doesn't fire.
Here you go, man. Good day. Thanks a lot.
I tried them, they don't work.
Maybe you weren't using them right. Maybe you weren't breathing properly.
Meanwhile, stress in the pawn shop is at an all-time high. Rick's doctor told him to chill out, so what does he do? He buys stress balls. Watching the old man roast him for playing with his balls all day is comedy gold. Chumley just sits back laughing like a kid at recess. Honestly, who needs therapy when you have this family dynamic?
Too much stress in my life.
Too much stress.
What do you mean, stress?
She says I have high blood pressure as a result of stress, and she thinks it's because of all of you.
Back in my day, stress was you got a bottle of Jack.
But stress relief takes a whole new turn when Rick decides to fire the Moscato. Forget yoga, he's about to let centuries-old black powder do the calming. Sean explains how it was used, loading it with nails, rocks, glass, basically anything sharp enough to ruin someone's day. Talk about brutal history. Chumley's face says it all. We need one of these at the shop.
My doctor diagnosed me with stress, and I've been using the stress balls for like a week, and to be honest, they don't work.
Here you go, chum.
I'm tired of being stressed. I'm the owner of this place.
Finally, the crew sets up for the big moment. Black powder loaded, countdown begins. 3, 2, 1, boom! The Moscato fires flawlessly. Rick's grin is pure joy, like a kid who just shot his first Roman candle. He even declares all his stress is gone. Honestly, who needs stress balls when you've got a 1740 cannon shotgun?
This was nasty, nasty warfare.
We need this at the pawn shop.
Moron. So how do you load this thing?
We're gonna put the priming powder in, okay, after.
But wait, comic relief makes another appearance in the form of Willie Nelson's supposed keychain. The seller claims it came from Willie's 1990 Mercedes. Rick looks interested. The old man looks like he's seen this trick before. No paperwork, no authentication, just a story passed down. The old man shuts it down cold, basically saying, "Call me when Willie himself signs it." Savage.
I'm coming into the pawn shop today to sell my keychain that belonged to Willie Nelson in his 1990 Mercedes-Benz. I'm looking to sell this keychain mainly because I have so much stuff at home.
The seller walks out, vowing to track down Willie Nelson to prove it's real. Yeah, good luck with that. If this dude actually manages to get Willie on the phone, the old man promised to retire. Spoiler alert, Willie Nelson's not showing up in Vegas to sign a keychain anytime soon. Talk about heartbreaking stuff.
What if I got a hold of Willie Nelson and he verified that that was his?
Is this a joke, son?
Back to Rick. He's happier than ever with his Moscato in hand. Stress relieved, history preserved, and $6 grand spent. The final shot of him calling it his stress reliever says it all. Sometimes Pawn Stars is about the money, but today, it was about watching Rick blow off steam, literally, with a 300-year-old gun. Priceless.
All my stress went away. It felt so good.
How's that for stress relief?
Imagine stumbling on an attic find so cool, it makes Rick Harrison drop a history lesson like he's teaching Pawn Shop 101. That's exactly what happened when a seller walked in with an Ives model train set from around 1916 to 1920. Rick lit up like a kid on Christmas while the old man cracked, "I never bought you toys because I never loved you." Brutal, but classic old man humor.
I have a 1916 to 1920 Ives Train set.
The seller explained he found the trains in the attic of a 120-year-old house. Rick then dove into the backstory. Ives started in the 1860s, had their plant burned down, collected on insurance, and came back stronger. Rick calls it a successful fire. Was it insurance fraud or just luck? Either way, this train had serious history behind it.
I remember laying out the track, setting up the scenery, arranging all the cars just right.
Rick asked what the seller wanted. The man said $850. Rick tried to counter with $750, but the seller stood firm, insisting it was worth at least that much. After some playful grumbling, Rick caved and paid the full $850. The seller strutted out smiling, while Rick looked like he'd just been out-negotiated by a toy train.
$850.
Okay, how about $750?
No.
Next, a man brought in something even stranger, an 1862 encased postage stamp. Rick inspected the brass token, which contained a tiny George Washington stamp. He worried it was trimmed to fit, which could kill the value. The seller didn't know much, just that he needed money for his band after his gear was stolen. Pawn shop drama with a musical twist.
So where in the world did you get this?
Well, when I was a kid, I went to a hardware store with my dad.
Rick called in Dana, his coin expert. Dana explained these were Civil War workarounds when coins disappeared from circulation. Merchants used stamps encased in brass for small transactions. This one had White the Hatter printed on it, one of only 34 merchants to do this. Dana declared it authentic, rare, and potentially worth $4,000 to $6,000. Rick's poker face was hiding dollar signs.
What do we have here?
I imagine that was sort of like a trade token of some sort.
The seller asked for $4,500. Rick shot back with $2,000. After some back and forth, the seller tried to push $3,500, but Rick stood his ground. Finally, they settled at $2,300. The seller left thrilled, already dreaming of new gear. Rick smirked, knowing he'd just scored Civil War history for half price.
Yeah, I need it right now, so,
Well, I'll give you 3 cents for it.
nah.
I'll give you 5 cents.
Then came the episode's biggest spectacle, a 1980 Datsun 280 ZX 10th Anniversary Edition. The seller proudly claimed it could be worth up to $70,000. Rick checked it out, admiring the rare edition, but his ears perked up when the engine coughed like a popcorn maker. Big problem. The car looked great at 20 feet, but fell apart up close.
They made 3,000, 2,500 were gold and black, and 500 were red and black.
Who in the world painted this thing last?
Rick offered $4,000 and the desperate seller accepted, but Rick called in Fatback, the in-house mechanic, just to be safe. Fatback confirmed the worst: slipping transmission, backfires, leaks, and backyard mechanic repairs everywhere. His advice? Don't touch it. Rick quickly backed out, and the seller stormed off fuming, calling it all a crock.
He doesn't sound too healthy, man.
It just needs a tune-up. I drove it 80 miles and it didn't miss a tip.
After the car chaos, a man walked in with James Bond gold. Literally, he had a final draft screenplay of Goldfinger, gifted to him by Harold Sakata, the actor who played Oddjob. Rick geeked out, explaining how Goldfinger cemented Bond as a global icon. Chumley tried to act out a scene, but Corey shut him down. Nobody needed Chumley as Bond.
I came to the pawn shop today to see if they were interested in the original final draft script of Goldfinger. I'm not sure of the value because I've had it for 38 years.
The seller asked for $1,000. Rick, ever the negotiator, countered at $500. The seller agreed without a fight. Rick walked away with Bond history for half price, while Chumley kept hamming it up in the background. If Oddjob's bowler hat could kill, Chumley's acting could too, but for different reasons.
How much do you want for this?
I'd like $1,000.
As if things couldn't get stranger, a woman wheeled in an 1800s tricycle from her mom's basement. She swore it was over 100 years old and wanted $1,500. Rick admitted it looked old, but pointed out the vinyl seat and welded parts that didn't match. The old man teased Rick about riding it, which honestly would have been YouTube gold.
What do we have here?
A tricycle from the 1800s.
And where did you get that?
Rick examined the pedals and axles and concluded it was a decorative reproduction, not an authentic antique. The seller was crushed, but tried to argue it had been in her family forever. Rick politely declined to make an offer, explaining that sometimes heirlooms are just sentimental, not valuable. The woman left frustrated, convinced Rick was wrong.
I'm just glad things changed, though, because seeing Lance Armstrong win the Tour de France on a tricycle is just something I don't want to see.
By the end of the episode, we'd seen Rick shell out for a toy train, score a Civil War stamp on the cheap, dodge a car disaster, snag a Bond script, and break a woman's heart over a tricycle. But the highlight? Rick standing firm against wild seller expectations. In the world of Pawn Stars, it's all about knowing when to deal and when to walk away.
Are you willing to make any type of offer on this?
I'm going to pass on it.
Imagine walking into the shop with a bass guitar signed by not one, but two absolute rock legends, John Entwistle from The Who and John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. That's exactly what a seller did, claiming it was even played on stage. Rick's eyes lit up instantly, but the old man couldn't resist a jab about Rick's fat fingers and lack of rhythm. Pure family comedy before the drama even began.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
What is this, a flute?
Yeah. No, it's actually a bass guitar that John Entwistle from The Who played and used. Let me take it out.
The seller explained the backstory. Entwistle signed and played the bass. Then Jones added his autograph later. To sweeten it, he had a notarized letter as proof. Rick wasn't impressed. This is a letter by Ed Malone who nobody's ever heard of. Without a reputable authentication, Rick knew the paper was worthless. But still, two rock god signatures on one bass? The stakes were high.
It's two amazing signatures on a bass.
Exactly.
I'm sure there's a top 10 list out there somewhere of the greatest bass players ever, and both those guys would be in that list.
For sure.
The seller wanted $8,000. Rick wasn't biting without expert input, so he called in Steve Grad, their autograph guy. Steve examined the ink and signatures, comparing them to known examples. Verdict? 100% authentic. Entwistle's autograph stacked beautifully, Jones's signature matched perfectly, and the two were signed at different times. The relief on the seller's face was obvious. He'd passed the first test.
A guy came in with a really weird shaped bass guitar signed by John Entwistle from The Who and John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin.
Steve valued the autographs alone at around $1,200 each, but reminded Rick that combining them on one bass could bump the value. Still, the paperwork meant nothing. The guitar itself needed an expert evaluation. Rick wasn't done yet. He called in his guitar guy, Jesse, to weigh in on the actual instrument and the bigger picture.
That's a kind of a white paint pen. It's a little thick. Next one is Entwistle. That's silver. So you have two different colors on here, which tells me probably signed at two different times.
That's what the paperwork says.
Jesse checked out the Kramer Duke bass, noting it was a quirky 1980s model. Decent condition, but not a super valuable guitar by itself, worth maybe $600 to $700. But with the dual signatures, Jesse figured the package could realistically sell for around $4,000. The seller's face fell. He dreamed of doubling that. Reality check delivered.
That's cool. That's the story behind it also, is that, that's what it says, that it was briefly played, so there's got to be some value to that.
Negotiations kicked off. Rick offered $2,500. The seller countered at $3,500. Rick stretched to $3,000, his final offer. The seller hesitated, clearly unhappy, but eventually agreed. Rick snagged a rock relic. The seller walked out lighter than expected, and viewers got the classic Pawn Stars tension of big dreams meeting cold, hard market value.
What do you want for it now?
I'm open to a fair price.
So what's your fair price?
I guess in your world, as close to $4 grand as we could get.
Next up, coin collectors rejoice. A seller brought in an 1867 proof shield nickel with rays. Rick knew right away it was rare. Only 25 were ever made. Proof coins from the 1800s are extremely scarce, struck with polished blanks for perfection. The seller wanted a jaw-dropping $90,000. Rick's skepticism kicked in immediately.
An 1867 shield nickel. This is cool. Where in the world did you get this?
I've had it for maybe 15 years.
Rick called in Dave, a coin expert. Dave confirmed the rarity and condition were top-notch. This was one of the great shield nickel rarities, the king of the series. He explained why they stopped production, because the stars and bars design reminded Northerners of the Confederacy. His valuation? Between $63,000 and $80,000. Serious money, but not quite the seller's dream.
The guy came in the shop with an 1867 proof shield nickel. These things rarely come to the market.
Time to talk numbers. Rick offered $50,000. The seller stood firm at $90,000, then lowered to $80,000. Rick didn't budge, insisting recent sales topped out around $63,000. No deal. The seller stormed off, declaring he'd sell it for $120,000 elsewhere. Classic Pawn Stars clash. Seller confidence versus market reality.
So what's your best price on it?
I told you 90,000.
I'm looking at like 50 grand.
From rare coins to quirky TV toys, a woman brought in a talking Herman Munster doll from the 1960s. She'd restored it herself and hoped to get $600. Rick passed it to Corey, who admitted it was cool but wanted expert eyes. Enter Johnny, a toy pro and die-hard Munsters fan.
I have a talking Herman Munster doll.
Okay.
I restore vintage talking dolls from the 60s.
Johnny examined the doll carefully. The restoration was factory correct, the string voice box worked, and the famous line still played. "You are the ghoul of my dreams." In this condition, Johnny valued it at $600 to $650. Corey liked it, but reminded her he needed profit margin. Negotiations got tight.
I'm just trying to figure out a price here, so let me call my guitar guy. I don't think there's anybody who knows more about guitars than this guy, so let me call him in and have him look at it. If you got a little bit of time, hang out.
Corey offered $450. The seller countered at $500. Corey agreed, knowing it would sell quickly to nostalgic Munsters fans. The seller left happy, and Corey scored a neat collectible. Meanwhile, Chumley couldn't stop pulling the string and quoting Herman Munster, driving everyone insane. Classic Chum.
That's not going to work.
So, tell me what you want for it.
I would like $600 for him.
Okay, there's going to be no way I can, although it's obviously worth $600, I got to have room.
Finally, the guitar deal reached its climax. With the expert authentication in hand, Rick settled at $3,000 for the dual-signed bass. The seller reluctantly agreed, admitting it wasn't the payday he dreamed of, but it was time to let it go. Rick looked thrilled. Rock history secured at a bargain. The tension, relief, and reluctant handshake, that's Pawn Stars magic.
I'm selling on $3,000 because it comes down to dollars and cents.
Imagine walking into the shop with artwork so legendary it defines biker culture. That's what happened when a seller brought in 2 original David Mann paintings. Rick's eyes practically popped. David Mann is considered the Norman Rockwell of motorcycles. The seller wanted $4,000 each, dreaming of vacation money. Rick admitted he had no idea on the value, so of course he called in an expert. The stakes were sky high from the start.
These are David Mann paintings.
Are these original David Manns?
Yes, they are. They are signed.
The seller explained how he got them. A friend named Red had known Mann personally. Rick explained to Corey that Mann created the entire biker aesthetic through his art in Easy Rider magazine. Any chopper illustration with wind in the hair? That's Mann's legacy. Rick even confessed he kind of wanted them for himself. Business brain versus fanboy. It was written all over his face.
I absolutely love them. Sort of want them for myself. So do you want to sell them?
Yes, I do.
Enter Brett, the art expert. Brett confirmed the paintings were authentic and explained that Mann was more than an artist. He was a biker, gang member, and part of the culture he painted. Brett valued one at $2,500 and the other closer to $2,000. Not quite the $4,000 each the seller hoped for, but impressive nonetheless. Rick now had numbers to work with.
A lot of money for these things, and I have no idea what they go for. So I called in Brett so I could get his opinion.
Rick kicked off negotiations at $3,000. The seller countered firmly at $3,500. Rick admitted this was one of those times he was buying with his heart, not his head. He gave in and paid $3,500. The seller walked away grinning, and Rick looked thrilled. Sometimes Pawn Stars isn't about profit, it's about passion, and Rick got swept up in biker history.
I think these are just so incredibly cool. $3,500, you got a deal, man.
All right, good deal.
Okay.
Switching gears, a seller presented a vintage spy pen radio from the 1970s. Rick immediately geeked out, remembering how he always wanted a toy submarine from comic book ads as a kid, but his parents said no. The seller wanted $300 for the spy pen, which looked brand new considering it was half a century old. Rick was intrigued but cautious.
Get this vintage early 1970s spy pen radio.
Cool.
Rick explained how it worked. Clip it to metal, and vibrations created sound without batteries. Old school science. He admitted he had no idea what the market was for it, but still tossed out $150. The seller, who had gotten it from his grandmother originally, agreed without hesitation. That's a serious upgrade from the $4 she once paid.
This is weird because it was for kids, and it was generally, they would play with it for a week and it was gone.
Then Rick took a road trip to see something totally different, a vintage Sulky, an old horse racing cart from the late 1800s. The seller explained they were called Sulkies because riders rode alone. Rick laughed at the name but admired the engineering. The seller wanted $1,250 but admitted he'd take $750. Rick started sizing up his options.
So this is a Sulky, right?
Yep, harness race.
You can actually haul ass on it.
Yeah. Well, this one was a racing Sulky.
The seller explained restoration could cost $750, with sanding, painting, and reinforcing the iron. Rick wasn't sure if it was worth it as is, but he knew a restored Sulky could shine. He offered $950. The seller pushed for $1,000, and they settled at $900. Since the seller had paid only $300, he left very happy. Rick scored another quirky antique.
And then we just start sanding the wood.
I mean, is the wood good enough to restore?
You're not going to get the splits out over here.
Next came music history. A seller walked in with a 1984 Bruce Springsteen Born in the USA tour jacket. Rick knew instantly how huge that album was, pulling in $80 million during its tour. The seller asked $500, saying it was crew issued. Rick, burned before on tour jackets, wasn't about to risk it without an expert opinion.
1984, Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen tour jacket only given to tour crew.
Rick brought in Warwick, his music memorabilia guy. Warwick inspected the jacket and confirmed it was authentic, but only a promotional piece given out by CBS Records, not banned or crew issued. He explained these were lower value compared to personalized jackets. He estimated its worth at $250 to $300 tops, way below the seller's hopes.
The thing about the Springsteen tour, it went through the end of 1985. It's like 155 dates on that tour.
Rick broke the news gently. To sell it, he'd need to frame and mat it, which would cost more than the jacket's actual value. He passed on the deal. The seller left disappointed but acknowledged it still had value for a dedicated Springsteen fan. Sometimes even the boss can't close a pawn shop deal.
It made $700.
Okay.
This one. But the difference was that one said Bruce on the front of it.
Meanwhile, Chum Lee decided to help Rick with his childhood disappointment. He built a cardboard submarine, the USS Chum, as a gag gift. The big reveal? Rick laughed, gave Chum an A for effort, but no day off. Corey and the old man just shook their heads. It looked more like a shoebox than a sub, but that's classic Chum Lee.
Hey, there he is.
What's this?
Check it out. The USS Chum.
Submarine you always wanted.
By the end of the episode, Rick had splurged on biker art, snagged a Sulky, scored a spy pen radio, and walked away from Springsteen memorabilia. And of course, Chumley proved yet again he's the shop's comedic relief. From motorcycles to boss jackets to cardboard submarines, this episode had drama, nostalgia, and pure Pawn Stars chaos.
You two are really okay with this. It was a very nice gesture. Thank you, Chum.
Imagine a seller walking into the shop with what looks like a science experiment from the 1920s, a countertop cigar lighter. Rick's first thought? Danger Ranger. The thing sparked like a stun gun but was meant to light cigars. The seller, calm as could be, said he wanted $1,500. Meanwhile, Rick kept side-eyeing it like it might blow up the counter at any second.
This is an antique cigar store countertop cigar lighter.
Do you know what year it is?
About 1920, 1930, right in there.
Okay.
The seller explained the setup: reproduction batteries, a spark, and an asbestos wick. Yes, asbestos, because if cigars weren't dangerous enough, let's add poison to the fire. Rick admitted it was cool, but dangerous. He threw out $900. The seller countered at $1,300. The haggling was on, and the lighter sparked more tension than the cigars it ever lit.
Because they were always just a novelty to begin with. I guess the upside is they'd be tough to steal. Do you have any lighter fluid?
I do.
Rick finally nudged up to $1,000. The seller agreed, shaking Rick's hand like he'd just sold him a grenade. Rick admitted afterward that the thing still scared him, but cigar lovers would pay for it. First deal of the day closed, and the shop had officially added flammable asbestos contraption to its inventory.
I think given Vegas and having no problem with people that smoke cigars all the time, I think you'd be able to find somebody.
Okay, so how much do you want for it?
I'd do $1,300.
You know what? I'll tell you what, I'll give you $1,000 for it. I ain't gonna go up die more.
You got a deal.
All right.
Thanks.
Next, history arrived in the form of a check signed by Aaron Burr, the vice president famous for shooting Alexander Hamilton. Rick lit up, explaining Burr tied Thomas Jefferson in the 1800 election, only to lose when Hamilton tipped the scales. The seller wanted $2,010, a clever nod to Hamilton on the $10 bill. Rick raised an eyebrow at the price.
Very good, thank you. I have a check from Aaron Burr I'd like to show you.
Okay, that is definitely cool. So, Aaron Burr.
The check was dated 1788 and worth £3. Literally pounds of silver back then, equal to thousands of today's dollars. Rick explained how Burr's reputation was infamous, but collectors love controversy. Still, with a cancellation mark right through the signature, Rick needed an expert's eyes. He called in Stewart, the document authenticator.
3 pounds back then was literally 3 pounds of silver. The equivalent of $3,000–4,000?
So this is a big check.
Stewart compared the autograph to known Burr signatures. He explained Burr's distinctive slant and flat-topped R's. His verdict, 100% authentic. The catch? Burr's bad reputation lowered demand. Stewart valued it at around $750. The seller looked crushed, his $2,010 dream evaporating faster than Burr's credibility after the duel.
This is the item you called me about? This is the item. This is an Aaron Burr canceled check. Very cool.
I own Stewart Let's Historic Documents, a firm that buys, sells, authenticates, and appraises historic documents.
Time to negotiate. Rick started at $500. The seller countered at $700. They went back and forth, even joking about Hamilton's face on the $10 bill. Eventually, they agreed on $610. The seller shrugged it off, saying he'd find another document to frame. Rick smiled, pleased to snag a controversial slice of U.S. history.
I was hoping for more than that. A shame to hear.
Well, Aaron Burr sort of has a, for lack of a better word, a negative reputation in the collecting field, and reputation is collectability.
Then came the big wheels. A woman rolled in with a 1960 Chevy Corvair. It even had a novelty horn, but she wanted $10,000. Rick was intrigued. The Corvair was GM's bold experiment, rear engine, air-cooled, and sleek for its time. Corey tagged along, excited but cautious. Rick reminded everyone this was the first-year model, making it historically significant.
What do we have here?
My 1960 Chevy Corvair.
I like it.
Would you like to hear the horn?
Let's hear the horn.
The seller boasted it was in good condition, only slipping gears when going slow. That's like saying it only crashes sometimes. Rick took it for a spin with Corey. Within minutes, Rick noticed sloppy steering and exhaust smells. He called it a death trap. Corey looked equally nervous, gripping the seat like his life depended on it.
They had to redesign everything to make this car. It's got a rear air-cooled engine, independent suspension. They took some chances making this car.
Back at the shop, Rick laid it out. Transmission problems, gear issues, sloppy handling. The seller stuck to her $10,000 dream price. Rick countered with $3,000, explaining he'd need to sink a fortune into repairs. She refused, insisting it was worth at least $8,000. Rick shook his head. No deal. Sometimes the smartest move is walking away.
Where in the world did you get the number $10,000 on this car?
Well, that's about what I have into it.
What does that got to do with the price of tea in China?
Meanwhile, Corey and Chumley were locked in prank wars. Corey rigged an air horn under Chum's chair, but Chum wasn't fooled. Chum bragged he was prank-proof while Corey fumed. The old man finally snapped, threatening to bury the hatchet. In them, pawn shop chaos at its finest, proving pranks don't mix with business.
What's going on, Corey?
What's up, Grandpa?
Oh, just came over.
Chumley thinks he's prank-proof, but I invited him to the conference room for a special meeting where I set something up that will even the score.
By the episode's end, Rick had scored a fiery cigar lighter, snagged Aaron Burr's infamous autograph, and walked away from a classic car money pit. Corey lost the prank battle, Chumley gloated, and the old man kept everyone in line. Cigars, duels, death trap cars, and pranks. Pawn Stars served up danger, history, and comedy all in one.
Corvairs can be great cars, or they can be like this one. I wanted to fall in love with this thing, but a bad transmission and sloppy steering, I just couldn't make the romance work.